Hi guys, welcome back. Today in class what we did was to talk a little bit about using Premiere, and in order to do that we also went over how to use a storyboard to create a series of shots and that would be edited together. This is a very basic form of a storyboard, as you can see, and the idea was, the homework assignment was to compile these shots using the footage that I gave you. And also to realize that creating a storyboard is important, especially if you're working in a group, so that everyone understands what's needed in order to edit things. So let's go ahead and use a storyboard as a starting point for our Premiere lesson here. And the idea for the first shot was that we would have an animated title that comes in for 2 seconds, and that would be overlaid on top of an establishing shot that is about 7 seconds long, as you can see. And the 7-second shot is a man entering from the left. The second shot is a bird's eye view of seeing the money on the ground and having the person have the hand come into the frame and pick up the money. The third shot is a mid shot where we can see him stuffing the money in his pants. And then we're back to the first shot where we continue to walk towards the door. Then we have a close-up of the doorknob, and we see the hand come in to grab the door in order to open it. And finally, the last shot is where we're on the inside of the door, seeing the door open and having the man walk through the door, and then the door shuts fully and we transition back to black. So we do a fade out. So we're going to go ahead and do that in Premiere. So let's go ahead and here are our videos, and we're going to be importing these. But let's go ahead and go to Premiere and start a new project. We're going to call this storyboard, and we're going to save it to the desktop. So we'll just browse to the desktop and save it there. There we go. And we're going to hit OK. So we're going to start. Normally we start, if this is the first time you've used Premiere, it'll start in the Learning tab where you can actually learn a little bit more about Premiere, and there's some really great tutorials here. But we're going to go right to the Editing tab and be given this window. And this window allows us to import video and images and still footage into a bin here for use later on. And we have this this window that allows us to see, double click and see things that are in our bin, so that we can take a look at what they are and also create like in and out points that we can use. And then finally we have our actual movie. Currently we have no movie, so you can kind of see, to start a movie we would drop a video clip in here, and that would start by creating our first sequence. Let's start here. Now, in order to import footage, you could double click here to import the media, or go to File, Import, and then what we're going to do is find the media that we'll be using. So under the Using Storyboard Media that's on the Workspace drive, we're going to just be selecting all this media with the Shift Select and importing it. And you'll see that it all imports into the bin right here. Now, normally you will see it as an icon preview. I'm going to hit the tilde key just to show you all the videos. So tilde on any window increases the size of that window. So if I'm in the bin here, if I hit the tilde, I can see all the clips. And if I mouse over any of these, you can see that you can actually see the clips themselves and what they do. So you can kind of see all those clips that were taken at various angles at different times using the video camera. And then finally we have the title that's going to be overlaid. I'm going to hit the tilde again. So we talked about in class that the first thing you drag into the sequence will establish the sequence's settings. So if you were to accidentally drag in something, let me take a screenshot of an area really quick. So Shift Command, like say I take this screenshot and drag this into my bin. Let's see, I'll put this in list view, and I'll just find that by going to File, Import, and then finding that screenshot I just took. And I'm going to import that. And you can see that right away when I double click it, this shape of this screenshot is vertical and doesn't look quite it's not the right size. So if I were to drag this in, this image into our timeline to establish a movie, you'll notice right away that the movie now is a vertical movie. And if I were to drag in any other element, all that, the shape of this and the size would be based on that first thing that I dragged in, which is not what we want. We want these videos to actually establish the correct sequence settings. So I'm going to undo that, Command Z a couple times until we're back to where we started. And we're going to be dragging in the actual movies first, at least one of them. And that's going to be our establishing shot. And so we're going to take a look at this. Now, according to my storyboard, the first 7 seconds of the movie is going to be the establishing shots, but you'll notice that the first 7 seconds before I get to this area and start to bend down and pick up this $5 bill, it's 16 seconds in. So what we're going to be doing is trimming a little bit of this video off. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to use this mark out and mark in to set our in and out points, to set our places that we want to trim this movie, to do our rough cut. You can also use the letters O and I, and this is our out point. This is where we want this shot to end. So we're going to hit the O button. That's the same as clicking this button, and that sets the out point. That means when I put this into the timeline, it will end right here, and the rest of this won't come in. Now I'm going to pull this back. Because we're at around 16 here, and I only want this to be about 7, that if I were to actually put it at around 6 seconds here and put the in point, I for in, you'll notice that this now is about 10 seconds in length total right before it gets here. So I can actually drag this in a little bit more until we have something that's close to the 7 seconds that I've requested for the storyboard. So this is about 8 seconds, which is close. Now, if we were to drag this into the timeline and let go, we get both the audio and the video because we grabbed from the middle. I'm going to undo that twice. If we were to grab this little icon, this drags only the video in, and you'll notice the audio is gone, and which is what we want for our first shot. And you'll notice that it starts here and ends right here. So let's take a look at now what we have for our movie. Notice the movie starts in and is about 7-8 seconds long here, and it ends right where I'm about ready to pick up the object. Now, if I wanted to trim this in any way, I could just, using the selection tool, which is what I should have, I can always bring these in and out to have the movie stop perhaps right there, and so I could just drag that in like that, or I could drag it out, in fact quite a bit out, because just because we trimmed it here doesn't mean that we don't have that video available here as well. So trimming it in and out by just grabbing on the end of the video is one way of editing, and you can do that on both ends of the video. So if I have this video and it's too long, I can make it shorter just by dragging this in and moving it around on the timeline, as you can kind of see. Now in the storyboard, it asked for a title to be on top of this video, and I know that I have my lucky title looping video here, and so what I'm going to do is take about 2 seconds of that, because that's what it asked for. Currently it's 10 seconds, so I'm just going to make an I for an in, and then I'm going to move this until it says, it's about 2 seconds, O for out, and now it's about 1 second, so maybe I'll make that 3 seconds, and that's about 2 seconds right now. And I'm going to take this video only, drag it on top of my existing video, and because this animation was done and exported with an alpha channel, you can see that it just sits on top of the video very nicely. So I've got our 2 second title, and notice how the 2 second title doesn't quite fade out before I move in, so I could always scooch this over. As you can kind of see now, I'm physically here on the left, and I'm going to open this up, and now the title will fade out as soon as I enter the screen. Now to make a fade, you right click on the end of the title and select Apply Default Transition, and that always makes a nice crossfade, and you can kind of see how that's going to look. So now we have a title that's crossfading out. We have our first about 7 seconds of me before I just barely start to pick up something. Maybe I'll want to trim that back. Maybe I just want to be looking at it at this point. So I'm going to trim that to here. So the next shot will be me looking at my feet. So there's this shot. And you can kind of see that the feet are walking into frame here. And I'm going to try to time it so that like I'm looking at it like right here. I'm going to have the I for in. And then I pick up the bill. And as soon as the bill leaves the frame, I'm going to hit O for out. And then I'm going to put this, and I'm going to put this after the next one. Now you'll notice the gap here, and these do normally snap together. So you can kind of see how this looks. And so I'm sitting here a little bit too much time, so I'm going to open this up a little bit and make this a little bit longer so you can see me start to bend over. And now I'm going to take this gap, I'm just going to select it and hit delete, and that snaps these two together. So it looks like this. That's a little bit better. And you can kind of see that at this point on the storyboard, it shows me looking at the dollar bill and then putting it in the pocket using the mid shot. So I'm going to find that shot, which is right here. So you can see I'm picking it up here. And as I move my hand out of frame down here, I'm going to use the I button to select this part as the in part. Look at the dollar, place it in my pocket, tuck my shirt, and then notice my first foot hits the ground right here at the out point. And then I'm going to drag that into the timeline and snap it. So let's see how that looks. And you can see there's a little bit of this goes a little higher. So I'm actually I'm just going to pull this in a little bit and get rid of that and see if the timing looks better here. Looks good. It's still a little bit of movement here, so let's get rid of a little bit more. I actually liked it better the other way. There we go. And so now I'm going back to that original shot, but this time with my leg ready to step into that first walk cycle. So let's take a look at that shot again. There's a shot, and you can see I used this part already. So, and you can see right here, right where I take that first step, that's going to be my new endpoint. So I'm going to hit the I button now, and that creates a new selection on the same clip. And then I'm going to go to the door, and then my hand is right about ready to out of frame. You see my hand's right about ready to come into frame, and I'm going to make that the out point. I'm going to grab that and put that next. And I'm going to zoom out using this zoom slider, and I'm going to see how this looks. Looks good. So right at this point, I'm ready to put my hand into the frame for the doorknob. So let's see if we can find the doorknob video. Here it is. And you can kind of see that right around here gives me about a second before my hand comes into frame. So I'm going to do an I for endpoint. And then I'm going to notice the door opening about this much. I'm going to select the O for out. And that's the amount that the door should open. So when I go on the inside of the house, that's what I'll be looking for. So let's put that next. There we go. That looks good. And then finally, the last shot is from the inside of the door. And you'll know that the door opened about this much on this shot. And I'm just going to set that as the endpoint setting. And then I'm going to let the door close all the way according to the storyboard. It just closes. And that's the end of that shot. O for out. And then I drag this in. And that's how we're going to see how that looks. Okay, it seems like it opened a little bit more. So I'm going to take a look at this guy. This guy is a little bit too open, so we're going to extend this out a little bit and then get rid of that gap by selecting it and deleting it. That feels like it's a little bit actually worse. So let's see, let's get rid of this. And you can hit the plus button to zoom in wherever the playhead is, and the minus button will zoom out. So plus, 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 get rid of the gap. And that looks pretty good. And then finally a fade out at the end, fade to black is what I asked for on the script. So or the storyboard. So I'm just going to right click, apply default transition. Good. And now one last thing, I said the entire video needs to be black and white. So we're going to use an adjustment layer to create that effect. So right here next to the trash can in the bin area, there is an adjustment layer selection. And if I select that, it'll just say this is going to be my adjustment layer parameters. And I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm going to take that adjustment layer and actually put it on the top of all the video. And so the idea with an adjustment layer, that everything below that adjustment layer will be adjusted with a color correction if I actually select this layer and do the adjustments to it. But right now there's no adjustments. So let's go ahead and go to our color tab up here to create an adjustment for that layer. So we're going to click on the color tab, and if you select any of these elements, these are all going to change. They're all context sensitive. So if I wanted to just affect this one clip by maybe making the saturation really high, you can kind of see that one clip is affected, but the other clips remain the same. So as soon as I click on a different clip, you'll notice the saturation stays the way it was. And on this one, it has the change in saturation. And you can even go to 300 if you want, even though this slider only goes to 200 just by clicking on the number. I'm going to change that back by double clicking it to what it was before, because I don't want to change any of the clips. I want to click on the adjustment layer and have this adjust everything below it. So by dragging the saturation down on the adjustment layer, you'll notice that now if I scrub across all the clips, the adjustment is actually on every clip the same way. Unfortunately, it's also on our title because our title is below the adjustment layer, and in the storyboard we said the title should have color. So to fix that, we're just going to move that title layer above the adjustment layer, and you'll notice now that the title itself is not being affected by the adjustment layer, but everything below it is. Now you could always do a before and after by using the eyeball to see what it looked like before and after. And anything that you do to this adjustment layer by actually maybe adding some tint to the shadows to make this like stylized, or changing the highlight, all these adjustments are actually going to affect the adjustment layer, and but not change the clips below them. So you can get some interesting looking styles just by maybe making a little purple for the shadows and a little bit of yellow or orange for the highlights, something that looks like that. I'm going to double click both of these to bring it back to black and white, and at this point I'm happy with the entire piece, so it's ready to export. Now when you're ready to export, what you want to make sure is you have that this area selected. I'm going to go back to the editing tab just so we know where we were. You'll notice that if the blue boundaries are selected on any other area, it will actually look for media to export from these areas. So go ahead and select this timeline area as the blue boundary before you go to File, Export, Media. And then because this is what we normally use in class, H.264, that's really important to select that. And then the preset for this one, we're going to actually pick a YouTube preset, YouTube 1080p Full HD. That's going to give us a very high quality HD video, 1920 by 1280. And we're going to change the output name to storyboard and hit save. And then we're going to make sure that it is the entire video that we're actually exporting. We're not accidentally missing anything, because sometimes that can happen. We do not want any audio, and although we didn't drag any in, it's always good to uncheck this if you're not exporting audio. We're just exporting video, and now we're going to hit export. And I didn't check where this actual storyboard MP4 file was actually being exported to. My assumption is the desktop, because that's where this entire project was saved, but let's double click. It does say that right here, 4C desktop storyboard. But if you let me go ahead and export again just so you can see it. If you click on the name, it'll actually ask you where should we put this video when you're exporting. So don't forget to save it someplace where you can actually find it. Okay. At this point, I'm just going to save what I've done, Command S. Now remember, if you were to move any of these videos that are in this folder anywhere outside of this folder or whatever, they're going to break here. So all these things that are in your movie file here or in your bin, these are actually only references to the movie. So just so you can kind of see what happens. So be aware that if you need to make changes in the future, if you were to delete something, like say for instance I delete one of these pieces of footage, Command or just Shift delete, and I go back here, do you notice it's broken? And it tells you that link is broken. So be careful when you're moving things around on your desktop to not move those elements out of the bin where they were originally imported from. So I'm going to just put that back, and you can kind of see now it's back in the bin. And now if I click back here, I should be able to relink this somewhere. Replace footage, or here, link media. There it is. Kind of picked up automatically, but now that the footage is back because I put it back in this area. Okay, and just to check to see what we have, let's go ahead and save this one last time. And if we look on our desktop, we should be able to see our finished storyboard video, and you can see it's black and white. It's accurate to the storyboard. The timing is pretty good. Everything looks correct, and so the idea again was to use the storyboard as a set of instructions in order to create something, a series of shots that flowed the way the director wanted it.